Hey, day 51 of 100. We're back, and continuing with React still. I have a feeling things are going to come to a close, as exciting as it's been, but then we're going to pick it up again, because there's still the Redux and React section. It's going to be pretty exciting, not going to lie. But let's continue. Let's continue reacting to things. So now we're going to be learning about inline styles. There are other complex concepts that add powerful capabilities to your React code, but you may be wondering about the more simple problem of how to style those JSX elements you create in React. You likely know that it won't be exactly the same as working with HTML because of the way you apply classes to JSX elements. If you import styles from a style sheet, it isn't much different at all. You apply a class to your JSX element using the class name attribute, and apply styles to the class in your style sheet. Another option is to apply inline styles, which are very common in React.js development. So you apply inline styles to JS elements similar to how you do it in HTML, but with a few JSX differences. Here's an example of inline style in HTML. Div style color, yellow, font size 16 pixels. Okay. Use a style. Okay. JSX uses style attribute because of the way JSX is transpiled. You can't set the value to a string. Instead, you set it to equal a JavaScript object. Here's an example. Okay, so div style, color, yellow, font size. Gonna use this camel case. Mellow yellow. Notice how we camel case the font size property? This is because React will not accept kebab case keys in this style object. React will apply the correct property names for us in the HTML. Add a style attribute to the div in the code editor to give the text a color of red and font size of 72 pixels. Got you. So we need to create an object, we need JSX syntax, so we need to use that. Then they want us to have... So it's going to be an object and give the text a color of red, and a font size of 72. Alright, we don't need to use strings. Okay, note that you can optionally set the font size to be a number, omitting the units pixels, or write it as 72 pixels but as a string then. So I would do it like that. Okay, but if I'm doing it as a number, we just omit that. But for clarity's sake, because I'm guessing M and all the other ones, we should probably do pixels. If we did M, oh yeah. Let's rather do it that way. Cool, there we go. Inline styles, wow. So I'm pretty excited for FCC's update. Apparently version 7.0 is going to lead to more project-driven learning. So instead of doing challenges, you're actually going to mainly do projects. And it's kind of sad because I'm almost 2 months in. And imagine how much more traction we would have had if we started that way. Because I've always said the best way to learn is by doing projects. And we've had somewhat of a struggling time because we've mainly been doing challenges and learning a few things here and there, and there's no repetition, so it makes it harder to learn. And now with the update, obviously no idea when that update is coming, but everything's going to change. Just as we probably finish this section. But I mean, that's cool. We can go back and check things out, refresh. That'll be really handy. You may have noticed in the last challenge that there were several other syntax differences from HTML inline styles, in addition to the style attribute set to a JavaScript object. First, the names of certain CSS style properties use camel case. For example, the last challenge set the size of the font with font size instead of font hyphen size. Hyphenated words like font size are invalid syntax for JavaScript object properties, so React uses camel case. As a rule, any hyphenated style properties are written using camel case in JSX. All property value lengths like height, width, and font size are assumed to be in pixel, unless otherwise specified. If you want to use M, for example, you wrap the value and the units in quotes, like font size 4M. Other than the length values that default to pixels, all other property values should be wrapped in quotes. If you have a large set of styles, you can assign a style object to a constant to keep your code organized. Uncomment the styles constant and declare an object with 3 style properties and their values. Give the div a color of purple, a font size of 40, and a border of 2 pixels solid purple. Then set the style attribute equal to the styles constant. Okay, so what do we need? It needs to be a color of purple right? So we do color purple, and then we do font size 40 pixels, and then border 2 pixels solid purple. So that's styles. And then all we do is, do we just set this to styles? Oh yeah, there we go. Wow. Div style equal to styles. This is crazy because now you're literally taking everything away from CSS. Like at the end of the day, we even need a CSS style sheet. Like you just have a React file that does everything. Wow. Gone are the days of HTML and CSS. I swear, I've said it earlier, React is trying to take everything over. All in one solution. I still think it's needed to have the logic separated. Because just mixing it all up, yeah, I don't know. It's a small project, maybe. Times are changing. I think that's it. The styles variable should have a font size property set to a value of 40. We have that though. The div element should have its styles defined by the styles object. Is it because I did 40 pixels instead of just 40? That would be so silly if they fail you on that. Oh wow, that's silly. Wow. Oh wow. Okay, I'm not even gonna... yeah, I'm just gonna leave it. Whatever. Use advanced JavaScript in React render method. In a previous challenge, you learned how to inject JavaScript code into JSX code using curly braces for tasks like accessing props, passing props, accessing state, inserting comments into your code, and most recently styling your components. These are all common use cases to put JavaScript in JSX, but they aren't the only way that you can utilize JavaScript code in your React components. You can also write JavaScript directly in your render methods before the return statement without inserting it inside of curly braces. This is because it is not yet within the JSX code. When you want to use a variable later in the JSX code inside the return statement, you place the variable name inside curly braces. Yeah, we've learned about this, though, haven't we? In the code provided, the render method has an array that contains 20 phrases to represent the answers found in the classic 1980s Magic 8-ball toy. The button click event is bound to the ask method, so each time the button is clicked, a random number will be generated and stored as the random index in state. On line 52, delete the string change me and reassign the answer const so your code randomly accesses a different index of the possible answers array each time the component updates. Line 52. Change me. So this dot ask, what does ask do? Does it generate a random number already? Yeah, it already does. So it sets state of random index. So we just need a get state. So answer is equal to possible answers. This dot state dot random index. So we've done that. Is that all? Finally, insert the answer const inside the p tags. Okay, so inside of here, you want us to have the answer. The answer is, just answer, like that. Ask the magic 8-ball. Ooh, what do we want to know, guys? Will I ever meet Elon Musk? Without without a doubt, yes! Oh, Elon! Wait for me, I'm coming. Amazing. Great stuff. So I'm going to meet Elon Musk, without a doubt. I am 100% happy. That makes me so happy. I can't wait. Wow. Okay. Moving on then. I can't wait. So excited. So, render with an if-else condition. Another application of using JavaScript to control your rendered view is to tie the elements that are rendered to a condition. When the condition is true, one view renders. When it's false, it's a different view. You can do this with a standard if-else statement in the render method of a React component. Haven't we... We did this. Like, I don't know if this is repetition, but we had visibility. We had visibility, true or false. Now, the only difference is display, true or false. Strange. My component, like, do you remember? And then we'll click the toggle. Anyway, my component contains a boolean in its state, which tracks whether you want to display some elements in the UI or not. The button toggles the state of this value. Currently, it renders the same UI every time. Rewrite the render method with an if-else statement so that if display is true, you return the current markup, otherwise return the markup without the h1 element. Note, you must write an if-else to pass the test. Use of the ternary operator will not pass here. Yeesh, tough crowd. If this.state.display wait, including the return? Can I do it inside of the return? I don't want to do the entire thing. I just want to do this. Oh no. How do we... I need to put this in JSX, don't I? Or do I need it like this? Can I even do this? Like that? I guess that's why they were trying to teach us this. Am I actually gonna have to do it like this? With the whole return thing? Yeah, I might have to. Jeez, that sucks. So if it's true, then display with the h1. Else, like that, without the h1. There we go. Without the H1, with the H1. Sweet. Okay, so use AND for a more concise conditional. The if-else statements worked in the last challenge, but there's a more concise way to achieve the same result. Imagine that you are tracking several conditions in a component and you want different elements to render depending on each of these conditions. If you write a lot of else-if statements to return slightly different UIs, you may repeat code, which leaves room for error. Instead, you can use the AND logical operator to perform conditional logic in a more concise way. This is possible because you ought to check if a condition is true, and if it is, return some markup. Here's an example. Condition AND... Wait, is that not the same as the AND? If the condition is true, the markup will be returned. If the condition is false, the operation will immediately return false after evaluating the condition and return nothing. That's weird. So condition AND... You can include these statements directly in your JSX and string multiple conditions together by writing AND after each one. This allows you to handle more complex conditional logic in your render method without repeating a lot of code. Interesting. Solve the previous example again, so the H1 only renders if display is true, but use AND logical operator instead of an if-else statement. Oh, in JSX now, yeah. So this dot, what was it? State.display. If it's true, then stick that in there. Otherwise we do not. Then it's just displayed. Wait, what tag should it be in then? They didn't specify earlier, by the way. Should we just put in a P tag? Would that be fine? Yeah, that's fine. I don't think they checked for that, so they didn't specify anything last time. So that's, yeah, that's quite nice. So if it's true, display that, otherwise display that. Wait, when display is set to false, only a div and a button should render. Oh, as in have nothing. So like that. Okay, there we go. Use a ternary expression for conditional rendering. Before moving on to dynamic rendering techniques, there's one last way to use built-in JavaScript conditionals to render what you want, the ternary operator. The ternary operator is often utilized as a shortcut for if-else statements in JavaScript. They're not quite as robust as traditional if-else statements, but they are very popular among React developers. One reason for this is because of how JSX is compiled. If-else statements can't be inserted directly into JSX code. You might have noticed this a couple of challenges ago. Yeah, I did. When an if-else statement was required, it was always outside the return statement. Ternary expressions can be an excellent alternative if you want to implement conditional logic within your JSX. Recall that a ternary operator has three parts, but you can combine several ternary expressions together. Here's the basic syntax. Condition, if true, if false. The code editor has three constants defined within the checkUserAge components render method. They are called button1, button2, and button3. Each of these is assigned a simple JSX expression representing a button element. First initialize the state of check user age with input and user age both set to values of an empty string. In state, first initialize the state of check user age this.state. Do we? Been a while. I need to look that up again. I think it was with the normal brackets. Let me just double check to be sure. Oh, it's equal to, right. So it's just like an object. Right, okay, there we go. First initialize the state of check usage with input. So they're objects, so like that. The input is empty and user age is empty. There we go. Once a component is rendering information to the page, users should have a way to interact with it. Within the component's return statement, the render. Set up a ternary expression that implements the following logic. When the page first loads, render the submit button, button 1, to the page. Are they expecting us to remember the life cycle? Is that what they mean? Or not? Okay, I see what's happening. So the first thing that should happen, render the submit button. Change code here, thank you. So when it first loads, render the submit button, button 1. I don't see the button. Oh, I know why. Because it's in JSX. Right? No? What the? Where's button 1? Ah? That's... Now render button 2 just to see if it's working. Why is it not rendering? That's weird. I'm pretty sure that's how you render them, right? Am I missing something? Oh, it's a variable. Hold on. Does that mean I have to literally just do that? Oh my god. I thought it was a component. I'm gonna get tripped up with that. So there's button 1. Oh, but we're already in JSX. There you go. So we need a condition. So what's the condition gonna be? No, we just by default do that. So we render button 1. And then, when a user enters their age and clicks the button, so when a user enters their age and clicks the button, It calls this dot submit. Oh, I'm thinking too deep into it. If a user, because I didn't read past it, if a user enters a number less than 18, so all we need to do is this dot state dot user age greater than, so the first one is less than 18, whoopsie, less than 18. Can we not do this? I need this on a new line. Let me just finish the logic. Less than 18. If the value is true, render button 3. So it would look like this. Else, button 2. That's what it should look like. That's the logic. But now that this is apparently an issue. User age is valid, right? Yeah, it does exist. Do I have to get props from it? Render. Can I do props? Dot user age? Unknown unexpected token. Expected on line 44. You mean I can't have like a multi-line? Is that the issue? Is this what you want? Yeah, apparently that was the issue. I thought I could have like multiple lines or something. This dot state dot user age less than 18. We should make sure it's not blank. So let us do this. Less than 18 and... Can I do this logic that I used to do before? I want to see if this... Let me do this? No, it won't. So I'm just gonna have to repeat it. This dot stated use age less than 18 and this dot stated not equal to. And I think our logic is a bit flawed here. If a user enters a number less than 18, render button 3. If a user enters a number greater than... But this should only happen on submit. But I can't put it in there, can I? That updates submit. User age this.state.input. If I use the lifecycle methods, we could probably... It would be a whole lot easier, but I'm not sure if we're allowed to. Let me just figure out another way. User age this.state.input. See, the problem is with the else here. It must be this, and if it's not, display button 2. We could add another one, a nested ternary, but I just realized something. could do null for the second one, couldn't I? Have nothing. Just put null there. And have another one. Greater than or equal to 18. Then render button 2. I don't like particularly using null, but hey. 12, you shall not pass. 22, you may enter. I mean, it works, but was there another way? Because the problem is, if it's less than 18, it will also be true if it's blank. Should I do greater than 0? Well, let's see if we even pass with this solution. Timeout has occurred. Did it take too long? What are they doing? When a number of less than 18 is entered into the input element, and the button is clicked, button's inner text should read, "You shall not pass." Wait, which button? Hold on, let me read the... When a user enters it, render a different button. So not alongside the existing button? Does it mean there should only ever be one button at a time? When a number greater than or equal to 18 is entered in an element and the button is clicked, the button's inner text should read, "You may enter." Once a number has been submitted and the value of the input is once again changed, the button should return to reading submit. Once a number has been submitted and the value of the input is once again changed, the button should return to reading submit. It's almost like we have to hide button 1. Oh, you know what we can do here? We can display button 1. Not have button 1 there, and instead of null, we just have button 1. This one can be null. I wonder, would that work? You may enter. Works for that one. Ah. getting somewhere. But we can't display button 1 twice, because then it's going to be 2 of them. Did they say anything like, are we allowed to nest the ternary? Yeah, it says you can combine several. I think we're going to have to nest. So nested ternary would be condition. If true. And then I think condition. If true. If false, I think. Let's just double check. Just want to make sure. Okay, that was just awful to read. I need the format, not actual code. If true, if false, yeah. If true, if false. Do I have a nested example? Yes, we do. So, a condition, if true, else. If true, otherwise. Oh, yeah. Definitely, we're definitely gonna need a nested one. That's for sure. So it's gonna end with button 1. This dot stated if it's less than 18 and it's not empty, we're gonna show button 3. Else another condition, which is this one. Greater than 18. Button 3, else button 1. Then we shouldn't need those. So we're entering something, let's say it's 11 or 1, 11. You shall not pass. 25. You shall not pass as well. Should have. Should have greater than or equal to 18. That is greater than 18. You shall not pass. Oh, it's the same. Hold on. Button 2. That's why. So if it's empty, nothing happens. If it's 1, you shall not pass. If it's 25, you may enter. And if you're changing it again, you have to submit. Yeah, that was it. We just needed to nest it. Do we need the to check if it's empty now? I think we will. I don't know what the logic is. Let's just check if it's less than 18. Oh, by default, yeah. Because empty. Okay, let's run this and see. Do we pass? There we go. Render conditionally from props. So far you've seen how to use if else and null. Where did we learn about null? And the ternary operator. Condition, expression if true, expression if false, yeah. To make conditional decisions about what to render and when. However, there's one important topic left to discuss that lets you combine any or all of these concepts with another powerful React feature, props. Using props to conditionally render code is very common with React developers. That is, they use the value of a given prop to automatically make decisions about what to render. In this challenge, you'll set up a child component to make rendering decisions based on props. You'll also use a ternary operator, but you can see how several of the other concepts that were covered in the last few challenges might be just as useful in this context. The code editor has two components that are partially defined for you, a parent called Game of Chance and a child called Results. They are used to create a simple game where the user presses a button to see if they win or lose. First, you'll need a simple expression that randomly returns a different value every time it is run. You can use math.random. This method returns a value between 0 inclusive and 1 exclusive each time it is called. So for 50-50 odds, use math.random greater than 0.5 in your expression. Statistically speaking, this expression will return true 50% of the time and false the other 50%. On line 30, replace the comment with this expression to complete the variable declaration. Line 50. What? Line 30. Change code here. Okay, so math.random 0.5. I'd like to add a 0 there. I know I don't have to, but I just like looking at it like that. Okay, now that we've done that, now you have an expression that you can use to make a randomized decision in the code. Next you need to implement this. Render the results component. Do we have it? I have to create it. Here it is. Write a ternary... wait. Render the results component as a child of Game of Chance. Oh, here. So render it here. So, results. We need to pass a prop. And pass in an expression as a prop called 50-50. And what does it equal? Wait, what? I'm a little bit confused. Render the results component as a child of Game of Chance and pass in expression as a prop called 50-50. Oh, okay. So 50-50 equal to we gotta use JSX now, don't we? $50-50 equal to expression. Okay. In the results component up here, write a ternary expression to render the text you win or you lose based on the 50-50 prop that's being passed in from Game of Chance. Okay. Do we not have 50-50? Oh, props. What? Is it not being passed as props? 50-50? Is it props.expression? No. 50-50. And it's not 50-50. And if I get props? Weird. It's false. Oh, because it returns... Hold on, expression is... Oh, it's just going to return true or false. Okay. Now we know. So props.5050. You win! Else you lose. That should be all. Only problem is nothing's rendering. Why? Why? Why is nothing rendering? Props.5050. You win, you lose. I'm allowed JSX in here. That's so weird. Hold on, what does our console log say? Props is not defined. Oh, is it again the silly this.props? There we go. We gotta make sure turn is updating as well. Make sure the handle click method is correctly counting each turn so the user knows how many times they played. This also serves to let the user know their component has actually updated in case they win or lose twice in a row. Counter. It's not 0 plus 1, is it just plus 1? No! I hate doing that every time, why? I click there accidentally. There's the button. Oh my god. Oh, we gotta do everything again. Okay, let's try to remember. What were we doing here again? We're rendering results. It was results, right? Yeah, results, and then we were passing in a prop called 5050. 5050? Yeah, which was equal to expression. And then we had a ternary here, which is if this.props.5050, then you win, else, hold on, else you lose. And 36 is an error. Oh, I forgot to close it. My bad. Yeah, close it. Yeah. And then counter +1. Can that work? No. Counter +1. Will that work? No, hold on. We did this last time. This.set state counter, we're going to set it to a value. We need to know whatever it is. So this dot, is there a better way than doing this? This.state.counter +1. Is there a better way to do that? That will work. Why am I losing constantly now? Every time is a loss. Okay, something's broken. If this.props.5050. Oh, we didn't do the expression yet either, because everything reset. So math.random greater than 0.5. I win! We can also track the amount of wins or losses as well. Does it look like 50-50 to you? Let's do something. I'm gonna just check for myself. What do you mean? Oh, do I need it like that? No, I shouldn't need to. Need to be wrapped in that? No. Why is it being so weird? Is it because it can only render one at a time or something? Of the parent or something? There you go. Wins, losses. Wins, 0. Losses, 0. Wins is going to have JSX. I'm doing my own thing. It's like learning. This dot state dot wins. Can't we do that? Why is that wrong? Why can't we do that? Oh, it should be game of chance, shouldn't it? But I can't do state. And I can't do this there either. And I can't do wins. How do we... How do we... Might need to move it down there actually, now that I think about it. Let's move that all out, let's move the div out, bring it back to how it was, then move it all down here. This dot state dot wins, that should work, there we go. And then maybe move it above it, to wins, and maybe do h3 tags instead. A bit smaller. Wins, losses, and then losses is literally going to be the same, it's just going to be losses instead. And then every time you win or lose, it handles click. There it is. Can we do a comma here and do wins? This dot state dot wins plus 1. Every time, yeah, you're going to keep incrementing wins. Except we need ternary. Can we do ternary in the state update? And we'll handle click. Oh, it gets more complicated, but basically we would have to pass the property to handle click so that we know if we won or not. Because that just increments the counter there. But that's cool. I want a console.log expression. False. Okay, so it does update every time we click. Cool. So, what if we did... We need a ternary expression, which is expression. If expression is true, this, then we need to do this dot set state wins, this dot state dot wins +1. Can I not do that because of multiple lines? I wonder. Or do we not need the extra brackets? I wonder. Hold on. It's not because it's on multiple lines, is it? After set state. There we go. So the expression, this dot set state wins, this dot set state wins +1, else this dot set state losses. It should be one line, yeah it is. Is it because it's 0? No, I don't think it is. Weird. Expression has returned a value yet, but nothing is showing. Why is it going up exponentially? Why did it... How did it get 5? If expression is true, this dot set state wins is whatever this dot state dot wins +1. Weird. Anyway, that was just our little playing around with it. Because then I would have tracked how that's working. So that should have passed for us. Let's just bring our code editor back to size, whatever it was before. I think it was something like that. Cool. Change inline CSS conditionally based on component state. At this point, you've seen several applications of conditional rendering and the use of inline styles. Here's one more example that combines both of these topics. You can also render CSS conditionally based on the state of a React component. To do this, you check for a condition, and if that condition is met, you modify the styles objects that's assigned to the JSX elements in the render method. This paradigm is important to understand because it is a dramatic shift from the more traditional approach of applying styles by modifying DOM elements directly, which is very common with jQuery, for example. In that approach, you must keep track of when elements change and also handle the actual manipulation directly. It can become difficult to keep track of changes, potentially making your UI unpredictable. When you set a style object based on a condition, you described how the UI should look as a function of the application's state. There is a clear flow of information that only moves in one direction. This is the preferred method when writing applications with React. The code editor has a simple controlled input with a styled border. You want to style this border red if the user types more than 15 characters of text in the input. Add a condition to check for this, and if the condition is valid, set the input border style to 3 pixels solid red. You can try it out by entering text in the input. So we need to get the length. Console.log this.state.input. Wait. Dot length. Sweet, that works. So conditional. Did they say we need to use like ternary or whatever? We can use what we want. So let's just do an if. If this.input greater than 15. Oh, we can't do an if. Remember, that was the whole point inside of here. This.input greater than 15. If it's true, we need to style, set the input border style. Input style equal to border 3 pixels solid red. Otherwise, we do nothing. Oh, and also I forgot that this needs to be a string. There we go. So we're busy typing, and then we get to too many characters, and nothing happens. Oh, I didn't do dot length. Hey! That's so cool, so I don't have to use the event listeners anymore. Wow, we can really refactor my the one project I have. Wow, look at that responsiveness. I'm happy with that. And apparently FCC is, yay! Use array.map to dynamically render elements. Conditional rendering is useful, but you may need your components to render an unknown number of elements. Often in reactive programming, a programmer has no way to know what the state of an application is until runtime, because so much depends on a user's interaction with that program. Programmers need to write their code to correctly handle that unknown state ahead of time. Using array.map in React illustrates this concept. For example, you're creating a simple to-do list app. As the programmer, you have no way of knowing how many items a user might have on their list. You need to set up your component to dynamically render the correct number of list elements long before someone using the program decides that today is laundry day. The code editor has most of the My To-Do List components set up. Some of this code should look familiar if you've completed the controlled form challenge. You'll notice a text area and a button, along with a couple of methods that track their states, but nothing is rendered to the page yet. Inside the constructor, over here, create a this.state object. Okay. And define two amazing. Without the state, it doesn't render anything. Isn't that crazy? Oh, because I was looking for state. These were calling state, but they didn't exist. And define two states. User input, okay. Should be initialized as an empty string. Right, and to-do list should be initialized as an empty array. Right. Next, delete the comment in the render method next to the items variable. Delete the comment in the render method. You mean this one? Delete it. Right. Next to the items variable. In its place, map over the to-do list arrays stored in the component's internal state. Items is an array. We have to use map, that's why. So let's look up map quickly. Okay, I have a feeling... Can I use an arrow function? That's what I'm wondering now. Because we need to do... the dot state dot to-do list, right? Dot map. Oh, it's normal JavaScript, so I could just write like I'm used to. So we just do item. Hopefully I can use an arrow function. And then, I don't know if we need a return. I don't think we have to return. So we just do list. And then item. I don't know if we have to do it like this. Do we do it like this maybe? Item. Guess we'll find out. Nope. Do we have to return? I think we have to return. I think that's the issue. So let's copy this apparently into there, click create. Oh, there you go. There you go. That was it, I just had to return. Why do I have that in JSX though? Can I just have item? What happens if I do item? Because it's a variable. Oh, then it's literally going to be item. Ha. So that's weird. Like you can use JavaScript, but then for the actual variables, you need to enclose them in brackets. My mind just straight up went there. And it works. Haha. That's cool. Nice and simple. Okay, I think that's all we need to do. Yep. What's next? What is next? Give sibling elements a unique key attribute. The last challenge showed how the map method is used to dynamically render a number of elements based on user input. However, there was an important piece missing from that example. When you create an array of elements, each one needs a key attribute set to a unique value. React uses these keys to keep track of which items are added, changed, or removed. This helps make the re-rendering process more efficient when the list is modified in any way. Note that keys only need to be unique between sibling elements. They don't need to be globally unique in your application. The code editor has an array with some front-end frameworks and a stateless function component named frameworks. Frameworks needs to map the array to an unordered list, much like in the last challenge. Finish writing the map callback to return an list element for each framework in the front-end frameworks array. This time make sure to give each list item a key attribute set to a unique value. Front-end frameworks dot map item you want a list item we can use index from map, can't we? And we need a return for it to show, obviously. A key attribute. How do you do that? Make sure to give each list item a key. You mean like this? Key equal to, and then we're gonna have two things. We're gonna have item and index, and then key is gonna equal index, but we're gonna need that in JSX like that. Should that work then? And then if we check in our inspector, did I get what? They didn't seem to get a key. I re-rendered now. They don't have the key attribute. Is that a thing? Do I have to like put the no. Key. As a last resort, the array index may be used. Yeah, that's exactly what we went for. But how do you do a key? This time make sure to give each list item a key attribute. Is that not how you give it a key attribute? Let's look. How do you give it a key attribute? Oh, you do. You just go key equal to, and then We don't recommend using indexes for keys if the order of the items may change, which they may. So we're just going to use toString like they suggest. So instead of having index, we will just use the item. toString. But that still doesn't give me what I want to see. Like, I'm expecting to see it here. Maybe it won't show me. Oh, but it already is a string, so setting it to string is a bit silly. Redundant. I guess it doesn't show. I guess keys are internally stored. It's not quite what I thought it would be, an HTML-like attribute. Wait, but there's a React, isn't there a React thing? Okay, anyway, but I think that should solve our problem. Yeah. Use array.filter to dynamically filter an array. The map array method is a powerful tool that you will use often when working with React. Another method for related to map is filter, which filters the contents of an array based on a condition, then returns a new array. For example, if you have an array of users that all have a property online, which can be set to true or false, you can filter only those users that are online by writing let online users equal to users.filter user.online. In the code editor, my component state is initialized with an array of users. Some users are online and some aren't. Filter the array so you see only the users who are online. To do this, first use filter to return a new array containing only the users whose online property is true. Then in the render online variable map over. Okay. First use filter to return a new array containing only the users whose online property is true. So users online. This.state.users .filter. And we can just use user. This.state.users .online. That should give us all the online users, and then render online, and in the render online variable map over the filtered array and return a list item element for each user that contains the text of their username. Be sure to include a unique key as well, like in the last challenge. Okay, so users online.map user why didn't that finish up? Change code here. Change code. Gotcha. And this will be return a list item which contains user.username, and we need a key equal to user toString, just in case, you never know, maybe there's a number in it. And then we should return. It should render online. Can it be user.username? .map. Oh, this should probably be user.username toString. And then we should render this with JSX. Weird. Still not getting that. Did we do the first part correctly? Console.log users online. Is this the one giving issues? See. Let us comment this out. But do I need to physically add JSX in here? Oh, I do. JSON.stringify. I have to do JSON.stringify outside, don't I? Users online. That's what we've got. Oh, don't we have to return? Don't we have to return for that one? Users online is this.state.users.filter for the users, right? And then we're filtering by this.state.users.online. Actually, it should be user. Shouldn't it be user.online? There you go. Don't know why I was doing that. I wasn't even using user. There we go. And this should work. See, forgot about you. There you go. Jeff, Mary, Sarah, and Laura all online. We gave them a unique key as well, user.username.toString. And we could probably add like an ID to it afterwards or whatever. Still want to know why we need keys. They haven't like really shown us an example of why it's so important. They just tell us do it. Render React on the server with render toString. So far you've been rendering React components on the client. Normally this is what you will always do. However, there are some use cases where it makes sense to render a React component on the server. Since React is a JavaScript view library, and you can run JavaScript on the server with Node, this is possible. In fact, React provides a render-to-string method you can use for this purpose. There are two key reasons why rendering on the server may be used in a real-world app. First, without doing this, your React apps would consist of a relatively empty HTML file and a large bundle of JavaScript when it's initially loaded to the browser. This may not be ideal for search engines that are trying to index the content of your pages so people can find you. If you render the initial HTML markup on the server and send this to the client, the initial page load contains all of the page's markup, which can be crawled by search engines. Second, this creates a faster initial page load experience because the rendered HTML is smaller than the JavaScript code of the entire app. React will still be able to recognize your app and manage it after the initial load. The render-to-string method is provided on React DOM server, which is available here as a global object. The method takes one argument, which is a React element. Use this to render app to a string. So we React DOM server, and it takes one argument, which is a React element. Use this to render app. So render to string app. Wait, React DOM server is the one included, right? Yeah, we just need a render to string app. Did I spell that correctly? Render to string, which is available here as a global. The method takes one argument, which is a React element. Why didn't that work? That's weird. We did render to string, didn't we? Oh. You have to do React DOM server dot render to string app. Do I have to do dot app? I doubt it. Should have been like that, but it's still not. React DOM server. We've spelled that correctly. Yeah, weird. Nothing's rendering. Do we just have to run the tests? The app component should render to a string using React DOM server.render to string. Okay. But how do you want to pass app? Okay, it's time to Google. So we've already got require React DOM server. Cool, we've got that. React DOM server.render to string element. But that's exactly what we're doing. The app component should render to a string using React DOM server.render to string. And we need to pass the element. Do they mean an actual element, like a div or something? Like that? Oh, this is confusing. Yeah. Should render to a string. Okay, great, but it's not. Everything that you told me. What are we missing? We're missing something. So render to string. Render a React element to its initial HTML. React will return an HTML string. You can use this method to generate HTML on the server and send the markdown on the initial request for faster page loads and to allow search engines to crawl your pages for SEO purposes. If you call React DOM. Okay. The React DOM server.render to string element. It wants an element. But this is like, that's a component, isn't it? So what would the element be? Uses to render app to a string. Like, what? Do you want me to type app? Wait, was it? Don't tell me it was that. It wasn't that, right? I'll call a class as a function. Good. Okay, and it's not that. And it's not a div either. So if I do like div, an empty div. Oh, was I actually supposed to call the component? So like we've called it before. Is that what it wants? Yes. Okay. How could I forget that? Because it treats it like that. Yes. You would call app not like that, but as an actual element. Sigh. Okay. Silly mistake, but hey, oh well. Ooh. So next up is going to be Redux. That's going to be pretty exciting. I can't wait for that. I think I'm going to leave this up for tomorrow and continue up there. Apparently Redux, I have no idea what Redux is. It's a predictable state container for JavaScript apps. It helps you write applications that behave consistently, run in different environments, client server native, and are easy to test. While you can use Redux with any Vue library, it's introduced here before being combined with React. Okay. I see, so it just makes React a bit easier? That's gonna be exciting. Okay, well I guess then we'll be doing Redux tomorrow. So we're finally done with React. That was really exciting. There are a lot of things that I want to implement and use in upcoming projects. I feel it's going to be a bit rusty, but we'll learn through trial and error. I'm just wondering if I want to redo my existing project using React. Because yeah, there are those other things to keep in mind. The empty states. It's just, what's weird is when it's said that your content may not be available when you use React and you should render it server side, but React will generate content for you. Like at least basic content, like hey, if you're not logged in, then here, you know, you display that information. Else, if the user is logged in, check the state, then display this, else display that type of thing. So there will always be content there. I wonder what they mean by sometimes you wouldn't have that content. I mean, I guess it depends on your usage. I'll have to play around and see anyway. Try and convert my app into React as best I can. But yeah, I don't know. The HTML is always going to be... I think I understand what's going on. I always assumed that we would include HTML and CSS files with React. But from what I've seen, you don't have to. You would do everything inside of a JavaScript file. Or the extension I think is JSX, right? So that means my HTML page for my project, my CSS file for my project, that will all have to change. And convert it all into React. So that will be very interesting. Wow. Because yeah, then you render the different modules and whatnot. But when you have so many CSS declarations like I have, it starts... I don't see how it's easier to manage in React then. Because at least in the CSS file, you know, okay, everything's in there. And then for the HTML file, you can follow the flow of what's happening and then just injecting code where you need it. I guess I only really know if I do it. I did it the one way. HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, the Triforce. And then the next part is doing it in React. But I think I'll only worry about that once I finish Redux. Because apparently I've been told that you want to use Redux with React. It just makes things so much better. So I think once I've done Redux and once I've done the React and Redux together, then I can look at, you know, converting it. And then I'll see which is easier to maintain. But yeah, tomorrow we'll continue with Redux. I'm excited for that. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. I have no idea what these things are, so I can't wait. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. I really did. And I will be back tomorrow. So if you got your notifications on, if you're following, then you should get a notification when I go live. Until then, bye for now.